Okay, we should be live. Welcome to this new episode of Music Theory for Guitarists, which is the live series that I do every Friday live on YouTube. Okay, I'm gonna pull up, as usual, the live streaming from another device as well to check that I'm able to see and read all of your comments while I'm live, so that if you do have any questions, you can, leave them in the live chat box on the right, and I'll be able to answer while I'm live. Okay, so this one should be clicked in order to be live. Perfect. Okay. So while we wait for a few more people to join live, I will do an introduction, okay? A quick introduction to the things we'll be going through tonight in this episode 3 of this live stream of this Music Theory for Guitarists. First of all, as a recap, if you're new here, this is a series that I do every week to make sure that we can talk about music theory on this channel, because sometimes in the other videos that I upload, I talk about something that, if you know some music theory, you'll be able to follow that a little better. But the whole goal of this series is to actually bring on the fretboard of the guitar all of the concepts that we all learn when we talk about music theory. So we'll be seeing how to apply all of the things that relate to music theory directly to the fretboard of the guitar. Okay, I'm just going to move my strut from here. It's a little annoying, and I'm going to continue just with my acoustic guitar. Okay, so tonight we'll be talking about, I've got my few notes here. Tonight we'll be talking about notes on the neck. So we'll be going through how to find, as quick as possible, all of the names of the notes that we play on the fretboard of the guitar. Okay, we did talk about this already in the previous live streams, so it would be more of a review, and we'll be maybe adding a few things here and there. We'll also talk about intervals. So if you're curious to know something about intervals, if you want to know something about intervals, this is the live streaming. This is the right live streaming for you. We'll be talking about major and minor thirds, but also the perfect fifth. Okay, so these are the intervals that we sometimes named in the previous 2 episodes when we were talking about chords. So they are very important for us to figure out how to construct chords. We'll be also talking about, again, power chords, major and minor triads. We'll be seeing what are the formulas and the intervals for them. We'll be going through the major scale once more with the formula. We'll be explaining what the degrees are and how you can play a few more shapes, especially a one string major scale starting from all of the strings of the guitar, any of the string of the guitar. And then we'll be talking about the accidentals, so basically the sharps and the flats that we defined in the very first episode of this live stream. And we'll be seeing how they apply to the different keys that we can play on guitar. All right. Now, let's get started about, we can do a little recap of the things that we said so far about the names of the notes on the fretboard, and how I can find, the name of any of the notes that I'm playing when I play my scales, my melodies, or when I just play chords and I need to move the chord positions all through the fretboard. So what I would start from is recapping that. Obviously, we start from the names of, the open strings, so E, A, D, G, B, E. That's where we start from. And apart from that, we'll be also saying that on fret 12, we've got exactly the same names as the open strings. So you don't have to count or do anything really related to the 12th fret of the guitar, which is where you more likely have 2 dots on top of your neck. You just need to say these are exactly the same notes as the open strings. So if you know the E, A, D, G, B, E open strings, you also know that this is an E, A, D, G, B, E on fret number 12. It's just going to be 1 octave higher than the open string. Okay. Together with this, we also said that we can count any note just following the chromatic scale, which we explained in the first episode of this series. It's just the scale which contains all of the 12 notes which belong to the Western music system, to our music system. We're basically talking about the 7 letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, the 7 letters of the music alphabet, and the 5 accidentals. The accidentals are the notes with a sharp or a flat, okay? They are 5, so altogether we've got 12 notes in our Western music system. So I could count, for example, A sharp or B flat, B, C, C sharp or D flat, D, D sharp or E flat, E, F sharp or G flat, G, G sharp or A flat, and then A. If you're not comfortable with this way of counting, guys, just go back to the episode 1 and you'll find why we count it this way and a few more examples on how to count it. But basically, I just want to say that all of the notes which belong to the chromatic scale have a distance between each other of 1 semitone or half step, which is on the guitar 1 fret. That's why if I start from the open A string, I count A sharp, B, and so on and so forth. What you need to memorize is that between the notes B and C, and between the notes E and F, you don't have a sharp or flat name. If you were playing this on the piano, that would be very easy to realize because you would have 2 white keys next to each other without a black keys in between. Okay. Yeah, then what else did we say? We also said that obviously the first string is an E, the low E is an E. So if you do have a few more references on the low E, maybe because you already play chords, like, I don't know, you play this G and you know that this note here is the root, so this is a G. Or you know how to play bar chords like this F, and you know that if you move it here, let's say here on fret number 6, there's going to be a B flat. Then you also know the name of these frets on the first string, because if fret 6 of the low E is a B flat, even fret 6 of the high E string is a B flat, just because they both belong to the, because they are both E strings, okay? And then the last thing that we introduced last week was the reference on the fret 5. And I also made the example of, you know, sometimes people check the tuning doing something like, and the reason why you can do that is because of the interval the strings are tuned. And therefore, if you go to the fret 5 of any of the strings, you will find the same note as the open string below. So if I go to the E string, fret number 5, I already know this is an A. I don't need to count it because it's going to be the same note as the open string below, which is an A. You can even check this by ear, this way. Okay, there is only one exception to that. Between the G and the B string, you will have to go to fret number 4 in order to find the same note as the open string below, which is a B. Now, this is not only interesting when you are looking for the name of the fret 5 or for the name of the fret 4 on the G string. It's also interesting because most of the time, if you are counting the names of the notes at the beginning of the fretboard, you know, the open string reference is enough, as well as if you are in this area around the fret number 12 in both directions, the reference of the fret number 12 is enough. But in the middle of the fretboard, we define this as the black hole of the fretboard. And in order to figure out the names of the notes in this black hole in the middle of the fretboard, let's say between the names of the notes on the fretboard. Okay. Now, all this, yeah, I hope you can see me right, guys. I did have some issues maybe with the connection, but I should be fine now. All this will continue in the next episode, adding more references, which you might already have. Okay, you might already have these references coming from things that you already play. So if you know chords, all of the chords will already give you a few more references. Again, if I play a C major, I could take the reference of the root note of this chord position that most of you already know. And I could say, well, this is going to be a C, and I know that if I'm looking for any note around here, the C could be another reference. So if I'm looking for the fret number 4 on the A string, I could say, well, I do know that the fret number 3 is a C. I can just do C, C sharp, and I quickly find it. So again, we'll be adding a few more references. We'll be talking about slightly more advanced concepts like the octave displacement that I teach, for example, when I show how to play scale shapes, even just the pentatonic scales that most of you already know. So we'll be going through that in the next episodes. But for now, I just wanted to recap these references because in this way we can approach better the next topic, which is going to be intervals. And now we'll be talking about intervals. I've got a comment by Leah, which says, thanks for recapping this at the beginning. Okay, I'm glad it helps. And I'm glad you're here. Thanks for joining this live streaming as well. So what I would like to talk about now is, in general, what an interval is. We already defined the intervals in the episode 2 last week when we said that the interval is nothing but the distance, okay, the distance that you have between two notes. So when I go from this note to this one, I can say, what's the interval in between, okay? The interval in between is just the distance, like D to E as a distance of 2 half steps or one whole step, which is the same thing. And this is also an interval. The name of this interval will be major second. We'll be going through all of the intervals in the next episode using something called the interval table. Hi Eclipse, how are you doing? And thanks for joining this live streaming as well. So now we can't really talk about all of the intervals in one lesson. So we will have to select only the intervals that we really care about right now in order to understand better the other topics that we already introduced, like, for example, the power chords or the major and the minor triads. Now, the intervals that we really need are three, and these are the three intervals that we will talk about. Major third, minor third, and perfect fifth. These three intervals are the ones that we really want to nail tonight. Now, if you're not familiar with the intervals in general, if you might think that the intervals are something complicated, you know, before, when we were talking about the fret 12 and the references on how to find the names of the notes on the fretboard, we talked about, we said the fret number 12 has the same name as the open strings, just one octave higher. When you say octave, which is a word that most of you already know, one octave is already an interval, okay? It's the interval between two notes with the same name. So if I go from one C to another C, which has a double frequency, this thing here is called octave. If I go from the open A to the fret 12 on the A string, which is another A, this is called octave. So this thing here, this distance between the two A's or the two notes with the same name is called one octave, okay? And one octave is made by all of the notes of the chromatic scale. So one octave will be 12 half steps or 6 whole steps. That's the distance, okay, between one note and another note with the same name, one octave higher or one octave lower, right? Now, this is an example of an interval. But as we said, the first interval that we are going to nail tonight is going to be the major third. Now, going back to the things that we played last week, we did play a few positions of the C major scale. Okay. And now what we are going to see first is going to be that when I play the C major scale is made by C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. When I talk about C as my root and I just count 1, 2, 3, I get the third note of the major scale, and this will be my major third, so the third note of the major scale. Now the distance between the root, C, and this note here, which is the third of the major scale, is 2 whole steps. Now, this is an E. C to E is going to be 2 whole steps. If you're not sure about it, let's count it on the same string, because this is going to be easier to visualize, and the whole point of this theory series is going to be to visualize things on the fretboard of the guitar. So if I do start from the C here, I can count C sharp, which is half step, D, another half step, E flat, which is another half step, and E, another half step. So I counted 4 half steps, and 4 half steps means 2 whole steps. So the distance, the interval between C and E, anywhere you want to play it, is going to be 2 whole steps. Every time in music we do have a distance of 2 whole steps, we call this interval major third. So not only when we talk about a major triad or a major scale, any time that we look at 2 notes, for example, within a music phrase, if I play, you know, a lick or something like that, and I've got 2 notes that when I analyze them, I realize that they have a distance of 2 whole steps, that interval will be a major third. Okay, so that's a general rule in music. And we'll be using that in a minute when we'll be going through again the formula of the major triads. For now, we just want to realize that the distance between one note, which is the root, and the third note of the major scale would be 2 whole steps, and we call that major third. Okay. Ideally, guys, if you're following this series, or even if this is your first time on this series, what I would like you to do, what I would recommend you to do, is to take some notes while we talk about these things for a number of reasons. First of all, because you might want to recap the things that we say. Second, because you might want to take notes of things that you want to remember after watching this live streaming. Same thing if you are watching the replay. Also, remember that no matter whether you're watching live or you're watching the replay, you can watch it over and over and go over the things that we mention in case you want to go a little slower with your own pace and follow the things a little better. But more importantly, you can take notes because during the live streaming or while you watch the replay, you might want to ask a question. And I'm here for this. I'm here to answer your questions. If you're watching live, you can leave your questions in the live chat and I will answer them live. Or if you're watching the replay, you can leave the questions in the comment box and I will answer them after the live streaming, okay? So yeah, if you're taking some notes, this is the first thing that you should take a note of tonight, which is going to be major third, is 2 whole steps. 2 whole steps is an interval that we call major third. Now, what is the difference then with the minor third? And we're talking about the minor third interval. Well, the minor third interval could be defined just as the interval between the root note and the third note of the minor scale, the natural minor scale, instead of the major scale. But because we didn't talk about the natural minor scale yet, and it could be confusing introducing it at this stage, I will not define it this way. I will just think about the major third interval, so the distance between C and E, for example, and I will move this interval half step lower. So the distance between C and E flat, for example. E flat will be the third note of the C natural minor scale. Now, this distance here, it's not 2 whole steps anymore. It's 1.5. It's 3 half steps, 3 semitones. Let's count them together. Starting again from C, as example, I could find C sharp, my first half step, D, second half step, and E flat, my third half steps. Okay, half step. So I can define the minor third interval as an interval made by 3 half steps. Okay, basically half step smaller, half step shorter than a major third. So if I start from C, I can say C to E is a major third with a distance of 2 whole steps. C to E flat is an interval of 3 half steps, also called minor third. Okay. Now, every time in music you talk about something major or minor, this could be, for example, a chord like C major or C minor. It could be a scale like C major pentatonic, C minor pentatonic, C major scale, C natural minor scale, C harmonic minor scale, or an arpeggio like C major arpeggio, C minor arpeggio. Every time you name something major, that thing that you are naming, that you are talking about, will include the major third. If you're talking about something minor, you've got the minor third. So basically, the third interval is something that we call the modal interval because it defines, or also the modal degree, because it defines your mode. Your mode means whether you are playing something major or something minor. It doesn't matter what, okay? It doesn't matter whether you're talking about a scale or an arpeggio or a chord. If you talk about C minor chord, this will include a minor third. If you talk about C major 7 chord, which is a chord which contains the note, the word major, you do have the major third in it. So major, minor are important concepts in music, and the fact that you have an interval which is called the major third, and you have another interval which is called the minor third, is what really defines whether you're talking about something major or something minor. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Again, this is the first note to take if you're taking notes tonight. What is the difference between a major and a minor third? Major third is an interval of 2 whole steps. A minor third is an interval of 1.5 whole steps. So basically 3 half steps, 3 semitones that you can see also as 3 frets on the fretboard of the guitar. Okay. And then we need one last interval, which is going to be the perfect fifth. Now, the perfect fifth is the interval between one note which we could consider as the root and the 5th note of the major scale or the 5th note of the natural minor scale, because they share the same 5th note. So again, for the sake of what we just said about the major scale, let's stick to the major scale. And if I play the 7 notes of the major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, when I play them, if I count the numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the interval between this note and this, between C and G, C, D, E, F, G. So G is my 5th note of the major scale. Now let's count, again, for a matter of simplicity at this stage, that kind of interval on the same string. If I go from C to D, I already know this is 1 whole step. From D to E, that's another whole step. So from C to E, I already found that these are 2 whole steps. Let's keep going from here. From E to F, it's another half step. So we are at 2.5. From F to F sharp, another half step. So we are at 3 whole steps. From F sharp to G, one last half step. So the distance between C and G is 3.5 whole steps, or 7 half steps. Okay, 3.5 tones, 3 tones, 1 semitone, or 7 semitones. On the fretboard of the guitar, this would be 7 frets. Now, this distance is called perfect fifth. We will not explain right now why it's called perfect and not major, for example, or minor. But we just want to take a note from now to avoid any confusion in the future, that when you talk about the fifth, but also the fourth interval, and we did talk about the fourth interval in the episode 2 of this live streaming, when we talked about the distance between the strings, and we said that the guitar in standard tuning is tuned by fourths. So if you're not 100% sure about this, watch the episode 2 where you will find the answer to this. But overall, what we want to say really is that when we talk about fourth and fifth intervals rather than thirds, for example, we never name them as major or minor. Rather, we call them perfect. If it's not perfect, because, for example, it's going to be a different type of fifth or a different type of fourth, then we talk about augmented or diminished. Okay. It's too early to talk about this right now. It's just to give you the right names so that you avoid saying the major fifth or the minor fifth, because they just don't exist in music. Okay. Replace what you would call major and minor with the word perfect. Okay. So you say one interval between C and G is called perfect fifth. One interval between C and F, it's called one perfect fourth. Okay. That's what I want you to notate. Now, we could also think about the perfect fifth interval, so the distance between C and G, as adding together the major and the minor third intervals. What do I mean? If I go from C to E, I already said this is 2 whole steps and I can call it 1 major third. But then from E to G, the distance here, it's 3 half steps, 1, 2, and 3. And that's what gave us the 3.5 whole steps of distance between C and G. Therefore, I could say that from C to E, I've got a major third, and from E to G, the distance between E and G is 3 whole steps, so I can call it minor third. Therefore, I can look at the perfect fifth interval as 1 major third plus 1 minor third. Major third, 1 minor third. Minor third from the note where I reached at the end of the major third. Okay. Okay, let's go through a couple of questions, because I see that there are a couple of questions. Then we'll continue with the next topics. So the first question by Eclipse says, I'm happy you decided to cover intervals. I've always been confused by people saying going up a third and down a fourth is the same thing or something like that. It's not exactly that way. We will talk about that rule of music theory intervals, which says that if you go up a fifth or down a fourth, it is exactly the same. So not fourth and third, but up a fifth or down a fourth. The number that you get by adding a fifth and a fourth is 9. So it only works if you have something that together makes 9. Like up a sixth, down a third, it's something that works exactly this way. Okay, it works the same. But I will be talking about this, but not in tonight's episode. It's a little too early because I'm following a specific order and I want to go step by step. Okay, hope this makes sense. But anyway, yeah, the intervals are extremely important to figure out a lot of music concepts like scales, chords, arpeggios, and so on. But also keys, for example. Leah also asks, going a little faster. I'm sorry if I'm going a little fast, but you can watch it again and figure out what it's not clear, or maybe leave a question. And you say, please explain what makes it perfect. Okay, I cannot explain it now for a simple reason. Because if I explain what makes it perfect, I would have to first explain what makes something major or minor. Okay. While now we are only defining what is the distance between two notes which belong to this interval. So if I say, what is the distance in a major third interval, that's 2 whole steps. If I say, what is the distance between two notes of a minor third apart, that's 1.5. Okay. If I talk about what is the distance between two notes which are 1 perfect fifth apart, that's 3.5 whole steps. We can only define this at this stage. But what is important to say is just that perfect is the name that we give to the fifth interval, not because it has a specific quality which is different from major or minor, just because the major and the minor fifth don't exist. Okay, so you don't have to call it major fifth, you don't have to call it minor fifth, while instead the third does have the major and the minor option. So you can call something major third, you can call something minor third as well, but you just can't call something major fifth because it doesn't exist. The place where you will see all this is called the interval table. The interval table is basically a diagram where you find all of the intervals that you can find in music. Okay, we'll be going through that in the next few weeks. And there we'll see that some intervals do have the major and minor names, and some intervals do not have the major and minor names. And instead of that, they do have a name which is perfect. Okay. But for now, let's just remember that we call perfect the fourth and the fifth intervals at this stage. Okay. Well, for example, the major and the minor thirds do not have the perfect name because they do have the major and the minor option. That's all we need at this stage. But later on, we'll see that. Oh, thank you for it. Okay, great. I'm okay. I'm glad it makes sense, Leah. Sartak also asks, can you please talk about chord inversions? We will talk about chord inversions, just not tonight. Okay, chord inversion in general, just to make a little summary and a little introduction of what we'll be talking about in the next, I would say in the next couple of episodes. It's basically when you play a chord which has a different note from the root on the bass. So I will not explain now all of the possible inversions and their names, but I can tell you that if you play a C major and the note of on the bass is C, this is not an inversion. This is something that we call the root position, because on the bass you find the root. If you find another note which belongs to the chord on the bass, we call that inversion. So because the C major chord also has the G note included, I could play a C over G, and this is an inversion. Okay, in particular, this would be a second inversion because it has the fifth of the chord on the bass. So when the note on the bass is not the same as the root, you have an inversion. Okay, and how do you notate the inversions? With a slash. So if you find C slash G, the chord is the first letter that you read, C. The second letter that you read is the note different from the root that you place on the bass, G in this case, C over G, C slash G. That's what the inversions are, okay? That's all you need at this stage, okay? Later on, we'll see what kind of impossible inversions we do have. Okay, hope it helps. Thank you for clarifying. Hi, Damneo. No, hi, Damneo. No M in your name, sorry. Sartak, thanks, that is a great description. Glad it helps. Eclipse is asking, so if a C major chord is played as C, G, E, is that not an inversion? Not, it's not an inversion. That is a spread voicing triad, which is this. So normally the C major triad would sound like C, E, G. This is called closed position. If you take the third and you put it one octave higher, as you described in your question as C, G, E, instead of finding C, E, G, the voicing will be C, G, E. This thing here, because it's spread over two different octaves, it's called spread voicing triad. But it is still a root position of a spread voicing triad in C. You can have both things together, an inversion and the spread voicing triad. For example, if you play something like this, which is a beautiful way of playing a C major, okay? That's a C major as well as this one, okay? Maybe not as common as that, but this is just a C major. What I'm playing here is a C major with an E on the bass, so I will call it C over E, C/E, first inversion, because I do have the third on the bass. But also, this is also spread voice in triad, because rather than being 3-5-1, it's 3-1-5. So it's spread over 2 different octaves. Okay, I hope it helps. This is why CGE is not an inversion. Okay, guys, I will keep going with the next few topics, but please, if you do have questions about these things that we are talking about, or suggestions for the topics that you would like me to talk about in the next episodes of this weekly series on music theory for guitarists, just let me know in the comments. Okay, I'll keep going, and then from time to time I'll get back to read your questions. Okay, now I will be talking about power chords, major and minor triads. In particular, we'll be talking about formulas and intervals. Now, formula is just what notes you have basically in the chords that you play. We already said that when we play a major chord, we have 3 notes. When we play a minor chord, we have 3 notes as well. And that's why we call them triads. Okay, the notes that you have are the first, the third, and the fifth. What are the first, the third, and the fifth? Simply the first, the third, and the fifth note of the major scale. There's the major scale. If I select the first, the third, and the fifth, that gives me the 3 notes for the C major chord. If I talk about the C minor chord, I will take the first, the third, and the fifth note of the minor scale, which goes this way: 1, 3, minor 3, fifth, and this gives me the notes for a C minor triad. Now, you obviously don't have to know all of these shapes that I played. We are going through the theory now, and we are going to say that from the root note to the next note of the major chord, I've got a distance of a major third. Okay, so I will say root note, major third, perfect fifth, that's the correct way of saying it, are the notes that I find in a C major chord. Root note, minor third, perfect fifth are the notes that I find in a minor chord. Okay, so in terms of formulas, you want to know just root, major third, perfect fifth, root, minor third, perfect fifth. So 2 notes are in common, the root and the perfect fifth. It's just the third, which if it's major, you're playing a major triad. If it's minor, you're playing a minor triad. Okay, but then you also want to know the intervals. Because we defined them already, we can say that from the root and the third in a major triad, you've got a distance of 2 whole steps, because we know now that a major third interval is made by 2 whole steps. While if I talk about the distance between the root and the third in a minor triad, so the minor third, that distance will be 1.5, okay? Because we know now that a minor third is 1.5 whole steps, okay? Now we also can say that when we go from the root to the third, and then from the third to the fifth, we do have another interval, okay? If I go from E, major third in the key of C, and G, perfect fifth in the key of G, in the key of C, the distance here, as you can see, it's 1, 2, and 3 frets. So it's 3 semitones. And we know that 3 half steps or 3 semitones is actually called a minor third. So I can say that a major third is made by, that a major triad is made by 2 intervals. 2 whole steps, major third, plus another 1.5. So another minor third. A major third plus a minor third. Major third between the root and the major third, and minor third between the major third and the perfect fifth. Okay, 2 whole steps, 1.5. When I put them together, the number that I get is 3.5, which we already explained was the definition of a perfect fifth interval. Okay, if I do this on the minor triad, because we moved the third half step lower, so we get root minor third, but the same perfect fifth. Now the intervals will be the other way around. I will get 1.5 here between the root and the minor third, and then 2 whole steps between the minor third and the perfect fifth. The total will still be 3.5 because the perfect fifth is 3.5, and this perfect fifth will be a mutual note as well as the root between the major third, the major triads and the minor triads, but the third will be the only note which changes. Major third, then I'm going to play a major triad. Minor third, then I'm going to play a minor triad. And this is what makes the sound happy or sad. Happy, sad. That's what you can refer to by ear when you hear this interval. Na, 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 na. train yourself to sing these intervals. That will help you massively, okay, even with your training. Okay, so that's what I mean by formulas and intervals for major and minor triads. Okay, so root, major third, perfect fifth, root, minor third, perfect fifth, intervals, 2 whole steps, 1.5, in the minor one, 1.5, 2 whole steps. Okay, if we talk about power chords, we said the power chords have only 2 notes, the root and the fifth. That fifth is the perfect fifth. So the distance between the 2 notes that we have in a power chord is going to be 3.5, because it's a perfect fifth, and it's only the power chord is only made by root and perfect fifth. If you do sometimes see how to play a power chord with 3 fingers with 3 notes, there are still only 2 notes really, because the third that you play is nothing but the root 1 octave higher. Again, we're talking about octave, we're talking about another interval, the interval between 2 notes with the same name, C, C, that's called octave. So a power chord is made by root, perfect fifth, and if you want, optional, up to you, repeat the root 1 octave higher. Okay. Questions: how well do you need to know the notes on the neck, and what's the best way to practice this? You need to know the notes on the neck really well. Obviously, according with your level and according with your goals. But if you feel like in your life you've been through stuff that you wanted to play, like chords, scales, songs, or licks or solos, and at some point you struggled to do so because you felt like you didn't have enough theory knowledge or names of the notes on the fretboard knowledge, that means that you are at a level where you need to go a little deeper and invest some time learning the theory. Okay, at the level that you decide that you need. Okay, and that's why I'm doing this live streaming series. Okay, because I'm going through the things from the very basics. If you start from my episode 1, this is the episode 3. If you start from the episode 1, I will take it from the names of the open strings. Okay, and I will bring it hopefully to a level where you really need to know like substitutions, just substitutions, and this kind of stuff. But you will stop at the level that you feel is more appropriate for you. The best way to practice them, this is what I always suggest to my students as well, is just to spend a few seconds, okay, every time that you grab the guitar, asking yourself the name of a few random notes on the neck. These notes could be even just 2, okay, which will take you 1 minute of your time every day, but you will improve dramatically if you just ask yourself 2 random notes like I did now without thinking about the name beforehand and figuring out how can I call them, how can I get the name of them. That's the right way of doing it, okay? But again, that would be up to you, but if you feel like you struggled in the past, that's the best way to test yourself, okay? Amazing, you're doing this for free, thanks so much. You're very welcome. By the way, where is your accent from? You guess it, and if you get it right, I will say that you got it right. But anyway, I will keep going now with the major scale. Now, even for the major scale, we can now get a more complete formula with degrees and a few more shapes. So we did play already. Yes, that is very correct. You got it, Eclipse. So you can play the major scale in a few positions that we did see already in the previous episodes. For now, I will recap the 3 positions that we already saw, and we'll be seeing how to play that in different positions on 1 string only. So I'll see. Let's get started from the very basics. The first thing is, if I start from the C here, you've got 2 options. One option is to play all of the notes, including the open strings, like C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and then go backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, B, C. Okay? If you are not sure about these positions, if you go to the episode 2, I show all of these positions in details, telling you where to find on the fretboard all of the notes that I named. Or you can just rewatch the part where I play them now here in this live streaming and maybe slow it down if you need it. So that's one position that you need to know. Okay, C major scale. This one has open strings, which is an issue because if you want to move this position, this precise position to other keys, so in other parts of the fretboard, you can't really do it with the same fingering, because this kind of fingering, it involves open strings. So what you can do, you can remove the open strings, play them somewhere else on the fretboard, and start from the same C in this way, and play C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, go backwards, C, D, A, G, F, E, D, C, okay? This is the position of the major scale over 1 octave, which I would suggest anybody to have under their fingers, because as I showed already in the previous episode, you can play it in any key, just moving this root note on the A string wherever you want to play it, and starting from, I don't know, fret 5, which is a D, D major scale. I don't know, fret number 8, which is an F, F major scale. So once you got the fingering, this is the most important that you can have. The same fingering actually applies if you start from the same C on the E string. So if you want to have this position rooted on the E string, which means that your root note is going to be on the E string, you can play this. So C, B, E, F, G, A, B, C, backwards. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. Again, spend a few seconds, guys, when you practice this, singing it. Singing it will really help you playing better and visualizing better the things that you learn. Okay, so we got 3 positions. One involves open strings. The other 2 don't. That's why I would suggest to keep these 2 under your fingers. Okay. Now we're also going to see the formula and the degrees. So the formula is when we go through the names of all of the notes, and all of the notes that we play are also called degrees. So the first note, which is the root, is also called the first degree. The second note that you play in the major scale is called the second degree. The third note that you play, the third degree. The fourth note, the fourth degree, and so on and so forth. 7 degrees for 7 notes. So when I say degree, it's the same as saying the 6th degree. It's the same as saying the 6th note, okay, of the major scale. But the formula has, together with the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then back to the octave, as it has a quality. And that quality for the major scale, and here we reconnect to what we said before, will be either the word major or the word perfect. We do not have the word minor in the degrees of the major scale, as well as obviously we don't have the word diminished or augmented. So I call the first degree the root note. The second degree is called the major second. The third degree is called the major third. We knew that already. The fourth is called the perfect fourth. We already said that. The fifth is called the perfect fifth. The sixth is called the major sixth. The seventh is called the major seventh. And then you're back octave, so the root note 1 octave higher. Okay, so root, octave, the notes in between, the degrees are second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. They're all major with the exception of the fourth and the fifth, which again you will have to call perfect. Okay, root, major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, octave. Okay, I said 6 twice, but it's okay. That's the nice thing of being live. Yeah, so that's what you want to remember. You want to remember the formula, and you want to remember the intervals. The intervals means, we already said that in the episode 1 of this series, whole step to get to the major second, whole step to get to the major third, half step to get to the perfect fourth, whole step to get to the perfect fifth, whole step to get to the major sixth, whole step to get to the major seventh, half step, if you didn't make any mistake, to go back to the octave, okay, root note 1 octave higher, okay. So the formula for the major scale is whole step, half step, whole step, half step. We already said that a little bit, for a little bit longer, describing it even more in the episode 1. So if you guys want to refer somewhere, go and watch back the episode 1, okay. Now, you need to remember the formula, the intervals, the distances, but you also need to remember that we always call them major. All of the degrees are called major with the exception of the fourth and the fifth. This will help you when you will look at the interval table or any other interval really, and that will help figuring out why we call something the major second, for example, or why we call something the major sixth. And it will help you massively understanding, for example, the difference between the major scale and the minor scale. Or later on, if you're interested in that, what the modal scales are, what a Dorian scale is, what a Lydian scale is, and what degrees you have there. In order to get to that level, you first need to nail, really master the things, the basic things that we are introducing in these first few weeks of this live course that we are doing on music theory for guitarists, okay? And then one last consideration is about the accidentals. So the accidentals are basically the sharps and the flats that you find in a specific key, or for example, in a specific major scale that you might want to play. When you play in the key of C major, if I play the C major scale, I do not have any accidental, because the notes that I'm going to play are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So all letters which don't include any sharp or flat. But this only works in the key of C major. So as soon as you move to any of the other possible keys or scales that you want to play, you will find 100% at least one sharp or at least one flat. From 1 up to 7, okay, depending on the key. And we'll be explaining how you can expect already how many accidentals and which accidentals in each key you will find before you even start thinking about the notes within that key. And in order to do that, we'll be introducing something that you might already have heard of, because it's quite of a very popular topic, even on the internet when you look for videos, which is the circle of fifths. Okay, we'll be talking about what the circle of fifths is, how we actually use it, and what teaches us about the accidentals in the keys. But for now, let's just say that only in the key of C major, you do not have any accidentals. As soon as I move to another one, for example, if I move to D and I play D major, some of these notes will include accidentals. So how can you train yourself? You can start from any random note of the A string. I would suggest to start, for example, from the notes D, F, and G, frets 5, 8, and 10 of the A string. Play your major scale with the pattern that we saw before. Do it slowly, figuring out all of the notes that you are playing, following the formula, whole step, half, whole step, half. This will give you like D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So for example, in the key of D, you will find 2 accidentals, 2 sharps, and they are F sharp and C sharp, okay? You try to test yourself with F and G, and if you find the right amount of sharps and flats, then you can test yourself with something even more difficult, like for example the key of E major or E flat major. Still doing just the same pattern, but literally writing down all of the notes that you're playing. How do you find these notes names? You just count them one by one using the references that we talked about at the beginning of this episode of the series. Okay, and now I just want to finish showing you how you can test yourself even more, looking for the major scale with the formula whole half steps, starting from the note C on any of the strings of the guitar. So if I start from C here and I want to stay on the same string, I will be playing C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and we did that already. If I start from the note C here, it will be the same. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If I start from the note C here, it will be the same. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I'm not going to sing it because it's crazy high. If you start from the note C here, it would be C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So it shows you all of these notes on the same string, just using the same formula. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay. And that's what you need, really. Okay. What strings did I miss? I missed the D string because the C is on the fret number 10, and unless you have an electric guitar, this could be a little tricky to complete because you don't have enough frets here, like C, D, E, F, G, A, and I do not have the frets for the B and the C on the acoustic guitar. I do have them on the electric guitar. So the exercise, the test, if you want to test yourself and practice the things that we talk about in this series, will be start from the note C on all of the strings. So you have note C on the first one, note C on the second string, note C on the third. We didn't do this. No, we did, I think. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And note C here, and note C here, and try to play on the same line so that you don't struggle with octaves and boxes and shapes and stuff. On the same line, on the same string, the C major scale made by the note C, D, E, F, G, A, B. Okay? Just counting the whole step, half step, whole step, half step. This is a fantastic exercise. It will take some time, but it's really, really helpful. And you'll be able to play your C major scale on one string. So this is a one string scale on any of the strings of the guitar. Okay, this is what I'm going to leave you. So yeah, this is all for tonight, guys. Okay. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it was helpful. Thanks for joining this live streaming, or if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching the replay. Thanks for your questions. They've been really helpful for me during this live streaming. If you do have more questions, feel free to leave them in the comment box below. If by any chance this is your first time on the channel, make sure to subscribe, okay? And if you hit the notification bell, you will also receive a notification about half an hour before I will be live. Usually, I should be live streaming every Friday around this time, but in case anything changes, if you subscribe and hit the bell icon, you get a little notification about half an hour before so that you don't miss any live streaming. If you want to be live with me, follow the lesson and ask any questions while I'm live. Otherwise, if you miss it, remember that you can always watch the replay. Okay. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. That's important because every Tuesday I'm uploading another video here on the channel. And if you like the things that I play in these videos, in these Tuesday videos, you can share on Instagram your version of the things that I play, your version of the exercises and the grooves and the rhythms that I show you. If you use the hashtag #TheBeardedGuitarist, and if you tag my profile, which you find in the description of this live streaming as well, I'll be able to see your practice, give you my feedback, and more importantly, I will be able to share you my stories as well. Okay. Thanks, Leah, for your comment. Yeah, and guys, the advice is always the same. I know that over about 50 minutes of live streaming, I talk about many things, and sometimes I have to go quick. So if you do have questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section, but also feel free to rewatch some of the parts that you might be interested in of the live streaming. You can slow it down, you can watch it more times, you can watch the replay, it will be available in a few minutes after the live streaming. And that's a good way to go over the topics with your own pace, okay, at your own pace. All right. Anyway, thanks again for watching this video, guys. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Take care of yourself. Stay safe. And I will be seeing you next Friday for the next episode of this Music Theory for Guitarists. Okay? Enjoy the rest of your evening and take care.